Welcome back for another episode of Mysticism Deep Dive. So, last time we left off, I was talking about Kabbalah, but today I want to backtrack because I think we missed a few key steps in terms of the explanation of what mysticism is. I think I briefly went over it, but I want this to be a journey where you come along with me and we learn together about, at least from a beginner's perspective, what mysticism is, how to get into it, what is practical mysticism, how to find this forbidden knowledge, and how to do the research in the same aspect I'm going to be doing it, right? Where I get a lot of my information, how to do your research, and so forth. And so, I mean, obviously, it involves Wikipedia, it involves a lot of web researching, reading, finding a lot of books, and I'm gonna try to condense it down to as much as I can. I'm trying not to go over 20 minutes per episode, so I'm gonna give you the real nitty gritty, down and dirty definitions. And I think Wikipedia is one of the easiest sources, but if I find things I know, I can just go towards them as well. And each episode, I'll just keep going from that. And we start with Wikipedia because they have a lot of easy things I can just copy and paste from in terms of books, references, pictures, ideas, and it's all compiled pretty good and concisely in a way that we can read it. Because a lot of mystical knowledge is out there, but you really gotta know what you're looking for. That's number one. And number two, you have to know if you have certain questions, who to talk to. Not who to talk to in a sense like which social circles to be a part of, but like how to phrase your questions that people can answer it. But that'll all be in time. So, as I said, to backtrack, to begin, what is mysticism, right? And we all kind of understand, at least, mysticism involves, in one form or another, some sort of mystical arts or something with like becoming one with something. All right, and what is this something? That something is like the supernatural entity that governs all of the universe, whatever you want to call it, or any type of like altered conscious state that we have inferred relates back to uh, reuniting with the entity. And in terms of that, it would be like, having visions, interpreting dreams, because we've seen in previous books that things like that have related back to mystical events. And so that's how we associate certain things like that. And so to begin with, a good example is like, the visions people had in the Bible, the visions in the Quran, the visions in the Torah, and so forth, And visions, yeah, are a big part of that, but there's also other things, such as like, you know, animal signs, animals dying and stuff like that. What's another example? I guess the numerancy, like seeing certain numbers or in certain pairs or whatever it may be, and things like that. That we have seen in movies, we've seen in books, obviously, and in pop culture now has been, I guess, taken for granted because people use in a lot of horror movies certain symbols that people will associate with like negative mysticism, I guess, black magic and that art, and so mysticism itself refers to this aspect. Uh, it may also refer to an attainment of insight in ultimate or hidden truths, and to human transformation supported by various practices and experiences. And so, mysticism here we're going to focus on is more religious based mysticism. Why? Because there's an aspect of history and social understanding that is out there and able to be searched. Whereas if it's not related to religious mysticism, and even shamanism is a religious form of mysticism, right? It's all religious traditions. But if it has no religious roots, it's really hard to find information on things like that. So it's going to be, yeah, anything focused on religious mysticism. Um, we don't really need the Greek origins from it, but just know it refers to the biblical, liturgical, spiritual, and contemplative dimensions of early Christianity. That's where the word comes from, meaning to close. So in modern times, mysticism has acquired a limited definition with broad applications as meaning the aim at the union with the absolute, as I said, with God. This limited definition has been applied to a wide range of religious tradition and practices, valuing mystical experience as a key element. So it's being able to talk to the divine, however it may be. We all may think we've had an experience like that, but where did you get that from, right? You have to had seen or know or infer that this is something happening. Or, well, I guess that's not necessarily the case, but because pop culture and other culture has just populated what a mystical sign would look like, you would have a good general idea if you saw something. And that's where people would understand in their self what their mystical experiences would be. And so, broadly defined, mysticism can be found in all religious traditions, shamanism, Abrahamic faiths, Indian religions, New Age, new religious movements. And then this is just talking about scholars who take different approaches to it. Contextualism is, uh, let me just see what constructionism is. So contextualism is like you have to have the context to understand the meaning, and constructionism says I don't really understand that. Social constructionism is a theory of knowledge in sociology and communication theory. So it's saying that yes, social constructionism is that the social entity will understand the laws of reality as we go forth. Hmm. So it's talking about mystical experiences. What is perennial? Oh, see, I've thought of that, right? Yeah. So the perennial philosophy is also referred to as perennial wisdom, is a perspective in philosophy and spirituality that views all of the world's religious traditions as sharing a single metaphysical truth or origin from which all esoteric and exoteric and knowledge has doctrine has grown. So there has to be a point in time where at least all these religions would have branched off from some point and at least have some type of basis, right? Because like even Satanism has roots in the Bible because Satan is from the Bible. But where does the Bible come from? And then whatever the Bible comes from is the basis for all the other religions, like the Hindu religions, all that, and going forth, and even like how monks are in Buddhism, you know, and have similar, I guess, ideals as in terms of fasting, wearing robes, all that and such, related back to Christian monks. I don't know if there's Jewish monks. I need to do my research on that, but yeah. Hmm. Okay, I mean, but either way, back to mysticism. So now we have our understanding of what mysticism is, right? And so, what different forms of mysticism do we know at? Well, then we know that there's different religious mysticism. So there's Christian mysticism. There would be Jewish mysticism. There would be uh, Indian religion mysticism. So I guess Hinduism mysticism. I don't know. There's different forms of Hinduism. So different types of mysticism there. Mysticism for different Asian-based religions such as I guess Buddhism, Taoism. There's mysticism for Greek religions or early Greek religions. I don't know exactly what they would be. I mean, that would be Christianity, right? There's Orthodox. Yeah, so it would be Orthodox Christianity. And there's mysticism for different forms of Christianity as well. Yeah, so early Christianity and shamanism. There we go. So let's look at it. Western mysticism, shamanism, Christian mysticism, Jewish, Tantra, Sikhism, Buddhism, Taoism, like I just said. Um, Secularization of mysticism. See, this is a separation of meditation and other mystical practice from the traditional use in religious ways of life to only secular ends perpetrated by Islam, which is fine, right? That's yoga, okay? But that would be just studying a sport to me. Well, not a sport, but like an art, which is fine, right? This is also a form of artwork in and of itself, but there's a lot more history in it. Okay, so what are mystical experiences? So the basis is the mystical experiences, right? How do you get these? What is it? And it looks here that mystical experience may have several origins. Spontaneous, right? Without cause, we don't even know why it's happened. Religious practices, meditation, contemplation, mantra repetition, entheogens, so psychedelic drugs, also smoking weed, all that different stuff, and neuropsychological origins such as like schizophrenia, temporal lobe epilepsy, and such. So we have different origins, and these are pretty loose in terms of what things can fall under it. So there's a lot of different things that can fall under everything here. Because religious practices could be, anything. Like I said, Satanism. I mean, whatever they practice is what they practice. Who knows what they invoke? But uh, same thing with Christianity, Jewish, Buddhism. You're invoking your whatever your experience is related back to that religion, and so that could be very very broad in what the experience is. Entheogens as well. I mean, just taking drugs, you don't know what would you be having a mystical experience every single time you take a psychedelic drug? Who knows? That would be up to interpretation there. But we have a good understanding or a good baseline from what to draw or what we're looking for in terms of the different religions and what they have on their information of different mystical experiences. And so the theoretical study of mystical experience has shifted from an experiential, privatized, perennialist approach to a contextual and empirical approach. Nice. As a private expression of perennial truth separate from its historical and cultural context. The contextual approach, which also includes constructionism and attribution theory, takes into account the historical and cultural context. Neurological research into takes an empirical approach relating mystical experience to neurological experiences. Okay, so now we have formed what is the basis of mysticism, mystical experiences, having mystical experiences. You can force it, like we've seen here with religious practices, entheogens, or it could happen spontaneously, or it could just be happening because of certain psychological conditions. And I guess that would include depression, that would include stress, that would include traumatic experiences. So very, very broad. And mysticism and morality. Okay, and so this will be the end of the mysticism. Look here, mysticism research here in terms of Wikipedia. We don't care too much about a neurological research, but yes, I do think that there's a heavy neurological influence into it, of course. Mysticism, morality, mysticism, and morality being incompatible. Arthur Danto also argued that morality is at least incompatible with Indian mystical beliefs. Oh, because I guess caste systems? I don't know. Walter Stace, on the other hand, argued that not only are mysticism and morality compatible, but the mysticism is the source and justification of morality. Others studying multiple mystical traditions have concluded that the relation of mysticism and morality is not as simple. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is a relation. I'm sure it does make sense, right? But a good example would be the interpretation of when I guess Abraham was supposed to murder Isaac. Is that what the story was? Yeah. Um, and that was because he spoke to a angel, and that is considered a mystical experience. And so, yes, there's definitely morality because he didn't murder Isaac, and that was the end of the story. But it's what does mystical experiences entail? Does it entail more subjective empirical data, or is it more subjective broad data, or is it more concrete empirical data? And now we're gonna research into what that really is. And so a good place to start most times for me is I go to Reddit, uh, and I think the basis for us is gonna be the big three for now. So. And I want to include shamanism. I want to include Buddhism. I want to include Taoism. But for right now, it'll be Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, or to kind of research the religions because there's such a good overlap into what it is. Like, in Islam, they have mystical spirits, or like they have entities that are known as like genie and such like that. Then you have the ghosts and the spirits in Christianity. Then you have the Dibuk in Jewish folklore. Oh, not Jewish folklore. Jeez, in Jewish lore and text, and so like it gets into the really good paranormal stuff as well. But I mean, mysticism is any experience deemed an altered state of consciousness which has a meaning related back to the one, I guess. And so we start here is occult. Well, actually, I think we'll leave that for next time. But this suggests be a good definition of mysticism. And let's see if I type in mysticism, what happens first. Mysticism of the woke. Why hasn't Christian mysticism gained the same level of traction as Sufism? Oh, Sufism is pretty cool. Shamanism in a world without mysticism. See? Okay, so we're going to see what we have. And there are very, very intricate books out there that are very old. And so we're going to go through the nitty gritty of all the very, very important texts. Well, not nitty gritty, but more like the fast and dirty and some parts of the nitty and gritty. So the more important parts, like okay, can we cast a spell? Is there information here that we're trying to gain? Is there something we don't understand? And it'll be then posting to Reddit, and all of this is still related back to practical mysticism. So the goal in my end is to be able to do something physically in the world. So until next time, thanks for joining me, and remember, like, comment, subscribe, and I hope you are practicing mysticism.